Aloha. Another episode of Maunalua Past, Present, and Future. My name is Kendrick Chang, and I'm a Community Outreach Advisor for Libo Hawaii Kai Hui. And today we have two fellow members of our community at Maunalua. In fact, they're from Lunalilo home. We have Dr. Diane Paloma and Iwalani AhQuin. Welcome to the show.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, maybe we'll start with Diane. Why don't you share a little bit about your background, and you're from Wailupe?
Yes, so I was born and raised in Ainahaina, also known as Wailupe Valley. I did go to Kamehameha since kindergarten, so I did leave the valley for a good portion of the time. But I'm happy to say that I returned. I now live in the home that I grew up in, and I've been the CEO for Lunalilo home for the past year and a half, and enjoying my 7-minute commute to Lunalilo. Thanks for having me.
And Iwalani, so you're the longest employee at Lunalilo home?
Yes, I was born and raised in Hawaii Kai, which is Maunalua Bay, and graduated from University Lab in 1993, and 1992, and then in 1993 I was hired as a data entry for Lunalilo home, and then worked in the front office, and then now I am the director for adult daycare center and their activity program, and I've been there 25 years. So I only know Lunalilo home. So
okay, and speaking of that, Lunalilo home has been in Maunalua since 1927. And maybe for Diane, what is the mission of Lunalilo home and the work you guys do?
Of course. So Lunalilo home, as you know, is an adult residential nursing home. We also have adult daycare, and we do have a meal delivery program. And the mission is to really preserve and perpetuate the legacy of King William Charles Lunalilo. We tend to care for and protect our kupuna, or our elders, our seniors.
Yeah, and if you can elaborate a little bit more about just the story and history of King Lunalilo, and we actually also have a photo of
So as you know, King Lunalilo was our 6th elected king or monarch of the Kingdom of Hawaii. He was born on January 31st, 1835, to Princess Miriam Kekauluohi, and so that is the address. We're on 501 Kekauluohi Street. His father was William Charles Kanaina. His street is over in Kapahulu, and so he grew up as a child at the Children's Royal School, attending with many others like King Kamehameha IV, Queen Emma, and he became a very, very well-versed, well-literate king. I have read recollections of him quoting Shakespeare. He was very much into English literature, very much a poet, a scholar. He wrote Eola Keali'i, the national anthem, while King Kamehameha IV was the reigning king. And just as a king, his middle name is Lokomaikai, which means generous, benevolent, and I think his legacy of generosity carries on today through the home, the care home, and what we do.
And in terms of his legacy, did he choose to more or less serve our kapuna?
Yes, so he was one of the first ali'i to set up a will and estate, which we know as trust today, or trust law. And he had over 400,000 acres of land. So he was a very wealthy ali'i. And in his will, it called for the sale of that land to be able to build Lunalilo home.
Right.
And we do have a picture of the original Lunalilo home, which was originally in Makiki, and now is the current site of Roosevelt High School. So we have a link to Roosevelt High School. And that building housed kupuna for about 40 years. Right. And then in 1927, the home was relocated to the old Marconi building, which still stands today, which is where we are now, in Maunalua. And so this was back at the time, that picture, you can see there's nothing there. It's the fish pond, Kuapa fish pond. There's no Kaiser High School. Right. This is far, far before Henry Kaiser and Kamehameha schools owned land, obviously before Costco came. Right. And really, I think what is so wonderful about our space is that we have the 5 acres where the home originally sat, right. And we still have that same building, which really has its own charm and really doesn't necessarily feel very institutional at all. It's a home, and we like to keep it warm as a home. Yeah,
and for you're primarily a senior home, but you also do other things, and in particular, Iwalani, you're the director of the adult daycare.
Yes, so adult daycare was developed about 14 years ago, and it's another service for our kupuna in our community. We do daily exercise, we do daily walks, activities from bingo to arts and crafts, and they do receive a nutritional meal from our Lunalilo home kitchen. And we're open Monday through Friday, 6:30 in the morning to 5:30 in the evening, and on Saturdays from 8 to 4:30. I have an awesome staff that love what they do as well, taking care of our kupuna. So we just want to try and reach out to the community and, help whoever is need for our elderly, because they're not getting any younger nowadays. Right. So, yeah.
And then also you do have your, Meals on Wheels program as well. You can share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we do about 5,000 meals a month. That includes our residential meals, our adult daycare meals. But we do have a van that delivers nutritious. We do specialized meals for kupuna who maybe cannot eat a lot of solid, hard, crunchy foods. So we do diet. We do modify for diet. We can do low sodium. We can do pureed. We can do special preference meals, and we deliver to the Maunalua community. We can go as far as Kaimuki, and then as far east as Waimanalo.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and in terms of why is it that even here for this over 100 years since Lunalilo home was first established, why do we still need Lunalilo home today?
So we want to be here in perpetuity, as was the wish of King William Charles Lunalilo. We also see that the senior or elder population is growing, and so with the baby boomers now approaching the age of Social Security, Medicare, we are going to see the need for taking care of our parents. So when my parents are at that age now, I'm getting a little anxious and a little worried about who can I turn to for services, whether they want to age in place, right, when we can deliver a meal to them, or if they need additional care, they can come to our adult daycare. And hopefully that can transition later on to, if they do need residential care and a little bit more acute care services, we'll have those available.
Right, and to add to that, I was very fortunate to have my father living at Lunalilo home. He actually just made 2 years there, so I see him every day when I come to work, and sometimes he calls me from his bedroom, and so I'm very fortunate, and I know he's in good hands here at Lunalilo home.
Now, now if we can talk a little bit more about the residential program, like how many kupuna do you guys have at Lunalilo home, and what kind of things do you have in terms of healthcare services for your residents?
So we have 42 beds, and we are licensed, a State Department of Health licensed facility. We also have about 8 of those beds dedicated to a higher level of care, meaning if they need oxygen or if they need wheelchair assistance, we are able to accommodate them. What people may not know is that we also do respite care. So if you need a loved one cared for temporarily, between 5 days to maybe as 3 weeks, say you're going on a trip, we have the ability to take care of your kupuna, manage their medications for them for a shorter amount of time if they're not in residential care. And I think the biggest part about what we do at Lunalilo is bringing in the culture of Hawaiian food, Hawaiian activities, speaking Hawaiian. We also recently were able to have garden beds created for us where we can do a farm to table kind of program for our kupuna. The that grew up with poi on the table every day. And so why couldn't we be able to help bring back all the flavors of their youth and be able to grow it on site we do have the advantage of having a 5-acre property. Dawson was able to build 12 garden beds that allow us to grow the food, prepare it in our kitchen, and serve it to our kupuna.
Just bringing more fresh vegetables and fruits to their daily diet.
And when were the garden beds built, and who was behind that?
So we got those garden beds from Dawson. So Dawson is a local company. It was around the birthday of B.D. Dawson, so honored her, and they do a service project every year. We also got some funds from the HMSA Foundation to be able to hire staff, purchase supplies for our home garden. So we have kalo, we have eggplant, lettuce, green onions, rosemary, a lot of herbs. We have fresh fruits. We have 2 mango trees on property. I don't know if I should disclose that to the general public. Mango trees, papaya trees, we're growing avocado. So really trying to get as fresh as possible using the land that we have.
And I understand, Diane, you also manage, volunteers from our community who wants to, come and help. So, what kind of, volunteers get involved with Lunalilo?
So actually, Eva and I both manage a lot of the volunteers. We have so many students, community groups, civic clubs coming. One of the best things about our volunteers is that they come and they share their time. And the kupuna, I think, really, really enjoy their time with the volunteers. This is one of the Kaiser clubs that come over all the time. We are actually literally right next door to Kaiser High School. We are just separated by a fence. And most people don't realize just how close we are to Kaiser. We hold things like our Halloween trunk or treat. This was a new thing where we have, instead of going out to homes, we just go to the backs of our cars.
So basically we're bringing the home to them.
Yeah. And then here's Eva hosting one of our Tea with Tutu. We've had a community group come in and just host a tea where our kupuna can dress up and feel a little fancy and be able to do all the things. So our kupuna are not as mobile to get out, so we can't necessarily take them to restaurants and to all of these places. So we try and bring all of those experiences to the kupuna. This is one of our Christmas families, the kekoas that come every year to entertain and share, have fun, play music. You'll even see some of our kupuna dancing and getting up themselves to dance hula. Many of them grew up just kanikapila, playing music as a regular family event, so really fun.
Right, and to get back with the volunteers, we know we're open to all ages. We do have a couple who comes every other Thursday and plays music. We have retired teachers, music teachers. We have students who need hours for their scholarships. So they do more hands-on, sits with the kupuna, helps them with the activities, or just going for a walk. Or if there's a big group, we have them actually help us with our garden, because 5 acres is a lot for our maintenance crew. But every help counts. So volunteers do an array of things. I set that up with them, see what their availabilities is. So it works actually really good in our schedule. So,
And then just going back, as you know, you are a staple of the Maunalua community. Why is it particularly this home is really needed for our community out in East Oahu?
Well, it's one of the last models of kupuna care that actually helps subsidize costs. So for our Native Hawaiian residents, we're able to subsidize a portion of that. And we realize with the expensive, increasing medical costs for our kupuna, right? As kupuna age, their medical needs become more complex. And so we are also looking at ways to be able to educate the community about how to take care of your kupuna. So maybe we're set at 42 beds, but everybody in Maunalua, or everybody who has a home, they have their own beds.
Yeah.
And so could they care for their kupuna in the same way? And I do think kupuna nowadays, they want to age in place, right? You see these multi-generational families living together for as long as possible because, one, of cost, but two, everybody wants tutu home with them. Like, who wouldn't, right?
Yeah, and I understand. It's even much more exponentially important to serve the Native Hawaiian community. I know there were some statistics by the CDC that, I believe you were going to mention, Diane.
Yeah, so when you look at our, my work in Native Hawaiian health has been, Native Hawaiians suffer disproportionately from chronic disease. Back when the first foreigners came to Hawaii, it was mostly infectious disease. And we've seen that progress, and we've seen organizations like the Queens Medical Center help address those needs. But as we moved into today, we suffered, and not just Native Hawaiians, but we all do, suffer from more chronic diseases like heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes, all of those things. So we are very much poised to be almost a medical institution taking care of kupuna and also being able to educate their families on, maybe bringing McDonald's is not the best thing for them, but there are many other choices that you can, and fresh fruits and vegetables and other choices, and we help families, learn about their kupuna in a different way.
Right. And then as for Lunalilo Home, you are subsidy. So do you pretty much, how does that process in terms of intaking and bringing in residents work?
So we have a director of admissions, Colleen Weir. She's excellent in being able to match the need with what we have available. Some residents stay for a very long time. I think we have a resident that's been here for about 10 years. And then some are a little more shorter stay, and it just depends on meeting the needs of the family. It's always best to plan ahead, but we always know that doesn't always happen. But Colleen would be the one to call, and the best thing about Colleen is that if our facility doesn't have the capacity to care for your kupuna, she pretty much knows this like the back of her hand, and she knows who to call and what organization. There are other care homes in the Maunalua area. Some are smaller, some are larger, some are more independent living. But really, we have a very nice partnership with them in sharing referrals and finding what's the best fit for the kupuna, not just what's the best for our organization.
Yeah, and also with the community, you guys do have several events you have every year that the members of the Maunalua community can get involved.
Yes, we have lots. So every February, closest to January 31st, which is King Lunalilo's birthday, we'll have our annual benefit luau. It's one of the last open air tent backyard Kanikapila style luau left in the state that does and holds events like this. So our annual benefit luau is usually at the top of the year. We also have a golf tournament. We usually have it somewhere in Hoikai. We've had it at Hoikai Golf Course for the past number of years. As well as we just started doing a annual Thanksgiving imu. So imu, as you know, is the underground oven. We do it on site because we have the property.
Okay.
And this past year, we had about 210 turkeys. We think it might be expanding now that the
Yes.
word is out. I think we're one of the only urban emus available.
Especially in the East Honolulu
Yes.
area.
Yeah, and so what you do is, for people who don't know, you wrap your turkey in foil. Or after seasoning it, of course. We put in the emu the night before Thanksgiving. You come Thanksgiving morning, pick it up, and take it straight to your party, your potluck.
Okay. And then for you, Diane, you recently ascended as the first CEO of Lunalilo Home last year, and then I know you guys have a strategic plan you're currently, working on. So, can you share a little bit more
Sure,
about?
of course, we'd be happy to. So I was hired under the Kauhale Kupuna Strategic Plan, which is a 10-year plan that takes us from 2017 to 2027. Basically, our trustees have adopted a CEO-based model of our organization, of which I'm the CEO. And we've been really trying to look at basic infrastructure setup, organizational effectiveness, financial sustainability, really these 4 pillars or goals that we have in order to keep the organization stable and kind of take us into the next 136 years. So we've been around as an organization for 136 years. The building is also about 100 years old too. And so we are looking towards really stabilizing our organization and then looking to see how we can better serve the kupuna. We realize that 42 beds is very limiting. And so what are the ways that we're going to start expansion is what we're working on. Starting with meal deliveries, looking at our adult daycare, and could we replicate this possibly in other communities as well?
Oh, wow. And for Iwalani, since you've been with Lunalilo Home for a long time, so do you have people you serve that maybe initially started with the meals service and eventually over the years made their way to become
Yes, so we've had quite a number of kupuna transition from the daycare over to our care home facility. I can't give you a specific number, but there was a lot. So they kind of begin at us at the daycare. And because the family and the kupuna has started at the daycare, they feel comfortable with the area, the staffing. They get used to the familiarity, and then they just transition in very smoothly over to the care house. Yeah.
And how important is it, that for as a care system that you provide these different levels of senior care?
So that is the trend of the senior care market. You see a lot of individuals looking for institutions or organizations that you can start off maybe with just independent living and transition all the way to hospice if you need it. You see these models increasingly popping up on the mainland, and especially in Hawaii, where we expect the senior population to surpass the youth population in the next 10 to 20 years. There is going to be what we refer to as the silver tsunami, which is this influx of seniors. And really, who wouldn't want to keep on continuing to stay and transition in the same safe place that you are used to, as opposed to, okay, I'm going to spend 5 years in this facility and then go to 2 years in another facility, and that constant movement, right? You want your home base to be a home base. And so we are looking at models in our strategic plan to do just that, to look at what are these other services that we can provide.
Yeah. And I know it's early, but have you thought of ways, potentially expand, your capacity to serve more kupuna in our state?
And so we're looking at, well, first meal delivery is one of the first things because it gets the kupuna in their homes. We're also looking at partnering with a lot of other community organizations and looking at how do we expand to other communities, or how can we come to a community near you, the viewer.
Okay. And finally, I guess we'll start with Iwalani and then Diane. Is there anything else you would like to add or share, any last minute call outs for our viewers? of how to get more involved.
I'm just, we are their voice. That's how I see it. That's how I continue. That's how we're going to help the kupuna in our community. And I see myself retiring here. I have my own room picked out and everything.
You do. You have your room picked out.
I have my room picked out.
I might have to fight you for it.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I just want to share how our kupuna are so revered in Hawaiian culture, and I think in all cultures, how much we appreciate our grandparents. My grandparents died at a very young age, and so I grew up with one grandparent. And so it's kind of nice to be able to come to work and have 42 grandparents telling me what to do. And they are wonderful, lovely, and I'll say very enthusiastic. They're not very, they're not quiet. They tell you what, tell you what's on their mind. Diane, are you really wearing that today? Okay. And so, if you have grandparents, hug them, love them while they're here, get the stories from them. And I think the kupuna now remember Maunalua the way it was back in time. And so if we don't capture those stories now, my kids won't know what Maunalua was back in the day. So thank you.
No, thank you for being part of us, and hopefully for viewers, whether they are part of a school group that can get more involved, or just volunteers, or even if maybe they have kapuna in their household currently that they're looking in terms of their long-term plan. Thanks for being part of our show today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, we want to thank Olelo Studios for facilitating this service of being part of our show, Maunalua Past, Present, Future, and also Kaimuki High School for being the facility that we are currently filming. And finally, to Liberal Hawaii Kai Hui that hosts and organizes this show every month. This is Kendrick Chang with Liberal Hawaii Kai Hui signing off. Mahalo.
Mahalo.